Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, two of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the fight game today, will meet on July 29th in a four-belt unification bout. That fight now officially scheduled July 29th at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. And if you'd prefer to watch it at home, of course, you can catch it on Showtime pay-per-view. Crawford comes in undefeated at 39-0 with 30 knockouts. He holds the WBO welterweight crown. Spence is 28-0 and has the IBF, WBC, and WBA titles. And again, that fight, it's now officially going down July 29th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, and you can watch it at home as well on Showtime pay-per-view. And we have the host of the Morning Kombat podcast, Brian Campbell, with us here on HQ for a bit of a preview. And Brian, this fight, it has been in high demand for years and years. So when you finally heard this was happening, give us your initial reaction. What were you thinking?
Look, better late than never, right? Not at all. I don't tend to quote the great American poets on this show like Ja Rule often, but boxing super fights, not always there when you call, right? But always on time. Most of the time. The question is this one still on time? I believe that it is. You're looking at two of the top three pound-for-pound fighters in the world at the moment and two potential all-time great welterweight fighters finally, after a 4 to 5 year build, signing on the contract to face each other. Not just once for for July 29th, but also a bilateral rematch clause reportedly in the contract, which could produce a second fight later this year. You have to love this matchup because it's not only the chance to crown the first four-belt undisputed champion in 147-pound history with the ups and downs of boxing's heavyweight division. We all know welterweight has been the money division, but really this is a era-defining fight in so many ways. We've had those types of fights in the past, from Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns in 1981 to, who can forget, Manny Pacquiao against Floyd Mayweather just 8 years ago. The only similarities in a lot of ways here is that Mayweather-Pacquiao fight also took a very long time to come together when they were 36 and 34. In Spence and Crawford's case, Crawford's 35-year-old, Spence is 33, but they're still right at the top of their games. Neither has lost, all four titles at stake. And when we look at the style contrast between the two, this could be an all-action thriller come late July.
BC, we can always count on you to tie in some Ja Rule when we're talking about a fight. This is being called by many the fight of the year. You're saying it could be the fight of an era. So just tell us exactly how these fighters match up with one another.
At the basis, you've got the perfect style contrast of the southpaw and Errol Spence Jr., who's as traditional and orthodox as they come in his fighting style, but can do it all. He can get inside on you, pound away to the body, and wear you down like he did to Yordenis Ugas last year to unify titles. He can also box on the outside. What he has across from him, though, as an opponent is really the ultimate artist as a boxer, and that's Terence Bud Crawford. He can switch stances at will. He's naturally orthodox, but can go all over the place and can really adapt to any situation. Errol Spence might be more of the straight-ahead typical fighter, although he's coming from the southpaw stance. But Terence Crawford can freestyle as well as anybody in this game. Both pack a high pace and a big punch in their styles. Both can adapt to any situation. You want to see a thriller with the potential of both action and elite high-level skill. That's the reason why people have been clamoring for this fight for so long. Yes, maybe, as I mentioned, it's taken a little bit too long, but I don't think either fighter has passed their respective primes. I think we're still looking at a big one. And like I mentioned, the potential for maybe chapter 2 and 3 down the road. I'm just so happy we get this once, July 29th in Las Vegas.
And Brian, finally, let's talk about just exactly how we got here. We've talked about it, how it's been a long time, maybe too long in your opinion, but it felt like at one point when it was going to happen, there was a public breakdown in the negotiations, including some issues with the revenue splits and then rematch clauses. So obviously that has been figured out to an extent. How did we get here exactly, BC?
Yeah, look, why does a fight take 4 to 5 years to happen? First and foremost, boxing, as we know, has a political divide. You get a lot of promoters and networks not always willing to work with one another unless we can get a fight up to the super fight level. Certainly this fight fits that bill, but we had to wait for Terence Bud Crawford to get out of his deal with promoter Top Rank with being on the ESPN side of the street, it took a while, as we said, for this to finally sign because Bud Crawford seemed to have cold feet last year when negotiations were close. There was a lot of blame across the board, a lot of he said. That's all water under the bridge right now because according to reports, Terence Bud Crawford has signed a 2-fight deal with the PBC. No more hurdles left in the way. We're finally going to find out who is the welterweight in the post-Manny Pacquiao-Floyd Mayweather era. It goes without saying, but this is as good as it gets in the sport of boxing. Just so happy we've finally here before either one took a defeat, before this fight, reached past its breaking point. Right now, still prime. It's still time for the big one.
All right, Brian Campbell joining us here on HQ for a preview of Errol Spence and Terence Crawford meeting on July 29th at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. And you can catch BC on the Morning Kombat Pod alongside Luke Campbell, and the fellas will sure have a lot to talk about with this fight coming up in July. You can download and listen wherever you get your podcasts, or of course you can scan that QR code and watch.